Well, good day, everybody. Welcome. First of all, I want to thank the organization for having me invited in this beautiful place here in Hofgastein. It's gorgeous. I'm living in Barcelona. So, you know, I finally saw again some green meadows. You know, in Spain all is burned and it's brown. And, but I love Barcelona, so it's, I love it there. My name is Peter Löffelhardt. I'm Swiss. As I said, I'm living in Barcelona, and I'm a patient. So I have been, when I was about 12 years old, my father, who was a general doctor, he told me, Peter, you have a problem with your blood. I don't know what it is. You have to think this was just after the Second World War. He said, I don't know what it is, but, you know, make phlebotomies, you know, go to give blood to Red Cross. And if you have a headache, whatever, just take, when these days we had Saridon, which will be today an aspirin. And that's what I did. And well, later on, when I knew that I have a PV, my treatment was based, it was during about 20 years, was basically phlebotomies and aspirin. So I have been myself treating for many time. I have been diagnosed about 30 years ago, but I have polycythemia vera, which is it's in a group of illnesses which belongs to the myeloproliferative neoplasias, which is a rare blood cancer. Basically producing too many platelets, and this is getting some, you know, thrombo problems. And I would say, you know, I still remember when in Barcelona, when I went to a specialist, a hematologist, and I found out because I had a very hectic life, business life. When I was 50 about, I changed, I wanted to stop. And I went to my doctor and said, why don't you make analysis of my body? Because I haven't not been very nice to him. So, you know, see what really is left over. And when, you know, I found out that my platelets, my whole blood analysis was totally wrong. So they sent me to a hematologist. And he made all my tests, bone marrow tests, you know, everything. And he called me back and said, Peter, you have a polycythemia vera. And he explained a little bit what it is. And he said, I was 50. He told me, I think you have about 5 years to live. Now, when somebody tells you that when you're 50, this is a shock. You know, you have a family, you have kids, you have to bring them up. And fortunately, I have a very optimistic character, so I just laughed at him. And I said, don't worry, I will be here in 15 years, you know, I won't go away so far. One thing I can tell you, I changed the doctor. So I looked for a different hematologist. I was lucky enough, I got a very good one. And he started to treat me very well. And well, a long time, everything went normal. When my spleen grew a lot, you know, most of us, we have that problem, but the spleen is growing. And I had it fairly under control until the beginning of this year, when suddenly that spleen started to grow again. And I had a belly, like you know, I looked like a woman with 5 months pregnancy. And it was, you know, stiff, and I had a lot of problems, digestions, you know. And well, we decided with my hematologist to change medicine. We fortunately have one since about 5 years. And fortunately enough, it worked. I still have my little belly, but we keep. And you know, I'm doing very, very good. I'm very happy. I'm back to basically normal life. But still, you know, it's an illness where we don't know where it's coming from, and it's an illness where we have no cure. You know, if my PV, it will mute within a certain time, which is, you know, unavoidable when mute into myelofibrosis. Myelofibrosis means that in your bone marrow, fibers are growing, and but fibers will not allow anymore to produce, you know, stem blood cells. And then, you know, you have a different problem. You don't have enough platelets. So everybody, you know, tries to avoid that because, you know, this can be a very serious problem. So, you know, I know this will come. We have, there are many advances in medical treatment, but still, you know, nothing really comes out. It's, we we still many things which we don't know. I assist to many scientific meetings of the KOLs, key opinion leaders, and it's still 50%. Well, we don't have enough data, we don't know, we have to check that, and you know, we don't have enough patients, etc., etc. So I have seen that when I got the when I stopped my work and when I started to be retired, when I had time, and when I really looked into the MPN world, and I saw that this is a disaster. You know, we don't have information, we don't know where to go. There is little, you know, concrete indications, you know, what we can do in order to prevent our illness. So really, what I had to do is I wanted to help the patients. So in the meantime, I have 2 patient associations to help the patients, one in Switzerland, one in Spain. And I have created 2 foundations, one in Switzerland, which is with a hematologist, where we have made a registry of analytical data of MPN, because that's also not existing, or not very much. And I have a foundation in Barcelona. Still, you know, it is very, very difficult for most of the people to live with a rare disease. The biggest problem of rare disease is that you have no information. And I always say a well-informed patient is half cured. Yeah, but if you don't know exactly what it is, you know, if I really ask questions, my hematologist, 50% he has to tell me I don't know. And, you know, I mean, if you have breast cancer, lung cancer, etc., which is also very bad, but, you know, you're today in a system which is very big and it helps you a lot. But a rare disease is a completely different world, and people is suffering a lot. So I will try to moderate you through this session today, but as a patient. So, you know, it will be a little bit different probably for you. You know, you're coming from a different floor. It's a different environment, you know, where you're coming from. I'm listening since yesterday, and you know, I sometimes just think I'm living in a different world. You know, it's you're talking, you know, what we heard today, this morning. You know, I don't know. He said he's working on a program for 25 years, and it's still not finished. You know, I mean, 25 years, that's a terribly long time. I can die in 25 years. And from all what we have been doing, me as a patient, I have not been noticing anything of it. There's no result coming to the patient. So what can we do? But the patient gets some positive reactions from all the activities which, you know, which are being done on these different levels. And I think they are working very hard. I can see that, you know, everybody is, you know, a lot of emphasis, and we're trying to settle the problems. But I would say let's try, you know, to get something which helps the doctors, which helps the patients. We don't realize that. We don't see anything. I mean, for me, I basically I have a same situation which I had 20 years ago. I have only 1 product more, and I think 2 more are coming. But, you know, you're getting it first approved by the FDA. Why is it always coming first in the States? Never a product comes first at EMA. You know, why are we behind of the United States? You know, what is the problem? And, you know, so for me, I can see, you know, we are talking and we're trying, you know. It's very nice to hear, but we would like that every patient in any country, EU country, can buy, you know, the same medicine, and, you know, that everything will be, you know, okay for everybody. We don't have any hurdles. But I don't think it's happening. And, you know, the only thing which is happening really is the administrative hurdles, which everybody has, and especially, you know, the doctors had. I was 2 weeks ago with a very, very good research doctor from Germany, and we were talking a lot, and I asked her, how is her work going? She says, Peter, you know, 5 years ago, when I needed a document, I made it with 1 click. And with 1 click, I got that document. Today, I have to make 10 clicks. So, you know, the bureaucracy, the administration, you know, who bring in the questions, I don't know if the questions are necessary or not, I cannot tell you. But this woman, normally in 10 minutes, she got the document, now she needs basically 2. Anyway, at the end, all this is a negative reaction for patients. because we are not seeing any advance, but in a rare diseases, we are getting something positive out of it. And, you know, rare diseases, we have minimum 5,000, somebody says 8,000. A big part of it is, you know, really rare disease. And I think probably 40–50% we don't have any treatment. So it's a very big problem. Okay, so in the session today, really what we're trying to do is, I'm trying to prove that the patient should be more in the center. And the session will break down the barriers, the challenge, prejudice, and spark dynamic conversations among the stakeholders. I think this is very important, you know, that we try to communicate and we talk, you know, but we have an interactive format between the different organizations, and this will help us. And I think one of the big points also would be, you know, to lower administration burden in the clinics. You know, also there in the clinics, the doctors are complaining that they're spending X percentage of time, you know, on administration, but we have not so much time anymore for our patients. I think this is an important point. I mean, we are talking, everybody here, about, you know, the problem which we have in the hospitals, in hospitals and in general in health care, which is true. It's, I mean, I can tell you in Spain it's even worse. What I have been hearing here today. It's a terrible situation, and it's all affecting at the end the patient, because the doctor doesn't have the time anymore. And it's still, when you're living in a big city, it's okay. Or it's more okay, because you know you can choose your doctors, but if you live a little bit outside, and that's the same in Spain or in Germany and France, you have to travel to the big centers in order to get the right treatment. And I think that should not be the case. So this will be, I think, about what we will discuss during today. So I think it's time to invite our panelists today. And I would first like to have Dr. Susan Graber-Platzer to come here, please. She's a senior supervisor from the Medical University of Vienna. You're a university professor, etc., etc. And you're very much involved in pediatrics, which you know, I like very much, because I'm in MPN. We also have, not very much, but we have children's. And I have a working group which is specific for kids. What do you give to the kids? What kind of, you know, treatment do you give them? Because there is no information, there are no data, there absolutely nothing available. So, you know, you have to invent it more or less, which is, you know, already bad. And then the kids normally doesn't suffer so much, depending on the illness, obviously. But the parents, you know, they do suffer a lot. And I think this is something where you're taking care very nicely of it, yeah. Then Dr. Alexander Natz, please, if you may ask you to come here. He is the Secretary General of OICOP. I didn't know before, I'm sorry, you're existing. European Confederation of Pharmaceutical Entrepreneurs. I think it's what I could read in the internet, obviously. That's the only way you can get it. But I think you have a very, very valuable organization, and you know, let's see, you know, what we can talk. Then online, we have, first of all, Dr. Pernille Weiss. She's a member of a European Parliament, and she has been 15 years experience in research and management, involved in 2010 already in rare diseases, like E-Rare, ERANET, etc. And you had... No. No? What was wrong?
Something's wrong. The other way.
Yeah.
The other way.
Oh, I see.
But it sounds very interesting. I would like to have these feathers on my back.
Well, I can continue, but why don't you tell what, you know, straight yourself, what you have been involved?
Now,
yeah. You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm Pernille Weiss. I'm a politician, but I'm also a nurse. I'm educated as a nurse, and I have a master's degree also in health science. So I know a little bit about healthcare. I've also been a member of a county council back home in Denmark. I come from that little country, but now I am a member of the European Parliament and active in the Committee of Envy and the Committee of ITRA. So it's public healthcare, and it's also industry and research. I'm also right now the chief negotiator of the Pharma Directive on the table in the Parliament. Hopefully we will find a Parliament's position before the end of this term. And then a lot of other things. But that's I'm definitely not my co-speaker. I am Pernille from Denmark, and I'm a politician. I'm very happy to be with you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for this wrong information anyway.
No.
Then Daria Jurkowska, welcome.
Thank you.
You are a scientific coordinator of a European joint program on rare diseases, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so welcome very much, and I'm looking forward for the discussions which we have together. Yeah. So in order to warm up, let's make a warm-up session here. I have one question. How are you contributing to research in rare diseases? Ladies first.
Yeah, I want to start. Also, research in rare diseases is a main focus at the Medical University and especially in the Children's Hospital in Vienna. We are focusing on highly specialized medical doctors, but medical team, healthcare teams, because we have very different questions and very different diseases. It starts from the newborn. We have a centralized Austrian newborn screening, and we are responsible at the Children's Hospital in Vienna. And in Austria, we are screening for nearby 30 rare diseases during the screening. That means we are focused with rare diseases from the beginning of your life. And then it's going on because most in children rare diseases are inherited. And to make an early diagnosis, that it's the main focus, because early diagnosis mean you can explain the parents and help them to understand and give them a hope. And hope is what we must give to everybody. And therefore, I think research is mainly what we need. We have heard there are 5,000 to 8,000 different rare diseases. More than 50% are in children, and mostly are inherited, and often we don't have a diagnosis. Therefore, research is coming up from diagnosis, basic research, up to treatment. And treatment is a hope over the last 2 decades. And I think, therefore, we are involved by a lot of clinical trials today in research, and to bring a hope for a really treatment for the disease, not only symptom-based that we had before. Now we are going in treatments that really are disease-based. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pernille Weiss, maybe it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you also for the question to me. I try to combine, of course, the position that I have now as being a European politician, working in the Committee of Research, because as said just before, research is paramount. This is from research that we find the answers, and also where we give hope to people, to families who are in doubt whether or not they will ever get some better situation for symptoms that are even not diagnosed, for what to do. So I try to do that as active as I can, being one out of 705 European politicians who also have to accept the fact that healthcare is a member state competence. So we also are living in a time where a lot of member states are trying the best they can. But where they could be better in rare diseases is to know whom to call when they discover they have a family, they have a citizen, especially when it comes to children, because a lot of rare diseases are within the spectrum of cancer when it hits children, and their time is crucial. So what I also have done, besides from my political work in the committees, I'm also a member of the think tank, the scientific think tank of the European Parliament, as actually the only Dane, for what that matter. And that was a luck because the state hospital in Copenhagen has a very good and for many years collaboration in children's pediatric cancer. And they came to me and said they had a cooperation with other hospitals in Europe, that they needed this collaboration to be more met with awareness and constructive dialogue with us as politicians, how we can provide better framework and guidance for how member states and especially healthcare professionals can find each other and rapidly coordinate and share best knowledge, best and shortest way to the expert knowing exactly what to do in a situation on pediatric cancer. And my hope is that this scientific study that I have started then now in the framework of the scientific board of the European Parliament, that the result that comes out in a couple of months on recommendations of what we can learn and what we could do better in pediatric cancer in Europe, that also could be some kind of a template for other rare diseases, where we in the Union can make a better collaboration between member states, but also where EU as an institution can find its even better role, maybe as facilitator, maybe as supporting more awareness to secure and safeguard research in rare diseases, because they are always being put aside because they don't represent a majority of the patient population. So that is some of the things that I try to do, and then also reflecting a little bit about my own situation, since I'm a politician in this cacophony of European politics, but also having the diagnosis myself as having a sudden deafness. So I actually only hear what people are saying into my left ear, although I come from a center-right political family, and that is sometimes putting me in a practical, funny situation where a lot of conversations are not heard, but the ones that I really get from those, I do learn and take down a lot of valuable information to put forward in a constructive way. And that is one of the examples that I just mentioned before with the Pediatric Cancer Society and collaboration right now happening in the scientific board. And besides from that, of course, being the chief negotiator of the directive for pharma, there I have a very, very big responsibility, but also opportunity to push for orphan drugs and the development of new medications, especially for rare diseases, that the incentives to do research and innovation on rare diseases solutions get better conditions going forward. I agree very much with your reflections about why are faster ways, quicker ways to approval in the US. Is it because EMA makes too much bureaucracy? I don't think so. Personally, I also hear from the rare disease communities of pharma stakeholders that because of the way EMA does, what is being put on the market is actually also drugs that do help, that not only has a chance to help, but actually literally do help. So we need to find out how to help the European pharma industry and those who cooperate with both the EU institutions and the member states, how to bring forward as fast as possible solutions to patients that actually do work, but also work not only for the targeted patient group, but also if they have potential for other patients groups, that is also acknowledged and being put into the business case, so that we can safeguard and secure that much more investment goes to the part of rare diseases when we look broadly on the many healthcare issues and challenges that we are facing right now in the Union. A lot of talk, a lot of work, a lot of words. I stop now, and I look forward to the conversation in this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's really more than a warm-up. We are really already running very fast. Thank you very much for all this information. I can only, as a patient, wish you good luck. You know that you have a very big responsibility. I just wanted to say that we still have 2 presentations, but we will have a Slido word cloud after this, so the public can also give his opinion. Now, I'd like to give a word to Daria. Daria Yurkovsky, please, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you very much. So as you mentioned, I'm responsible for the coordination of the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases, which actually started, and it's now coming almost to its end. It started in January 2019 and will be finished next year. And we are now going to the next phase, which is a partnership for rare diseases, which is called ERDERA. But in terms of what do we do for research, is that actually the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases created a kind of a solid baseline for the rare diseases research ecosystem. We did it based on the fact that we have analyzed at the very beginning all the elements that were developed since almost 20 years in the rare diseases ecosystem. So the collaborative research, but also the creation of the European Reference Network, the strong voice of the patients through their organizations and EuroOrdis also at the European scale. The creation of and the support from the European Commission, but also from the member states that were supporting already research, multinational research on rare diseases, because we know that in rare diseases the research actually must be collaborative, because otherwise it's very difficult to have the necessary critical mass. So all those different elements were kind of suspended in this environment individually, and we decided to put them under one umbrella of the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases by making all the stakeholders also coming together. So what the AJPRD has created is that we have a strong funding program, multinational program that is financing research on rare diseases, and this encompasses also the strong collaboration with patients and financing of patient organizations within those research projects. So this is a kind of, let's say, I would say, a proof of concept that we have implemented in the AJPRD. So we not only finance also research, but we also support what we call the networking, because as you mentioned, patients, but also different types of stakeholders. So often patients, clinicians, researchers, they do not come together. And actually, not only 95% of the rare diseases do not have today any treatment, but also the majority of them do not have actually even the research activity. So to be able to start the research activity, you also need to put the people together. So we are also supporting the networking. So those different types of stakeholders can come together and they can start also or boost the ideas for research. You mentioned about the fact that the information is scattered or not available. Within the AJPRD, we have created what is called the virtual platform of data tools and resources, and that for the first time allowed the connection of different types of resources, like for example the OrphaNet that some of you may know, but also connected, for example, with the information from the biobanks, the information from the genetic programs and so on, to be able to encompass the different types of data from the rare diseases and to be able to use them and reuse them for research, which is extremely important because, again, the data is not necessarily available and it is scattered. We have created, and again, not necessarily starting from scratch, but we have analyzed all the different education programs that were existing, education and training programs, and we have supported the comprehensive let's say, a set of tools and education and trainings that are dedicated to patients, to the researchers, to the clinicians, but also through the general public. We have created the massive online open course on rare diseases, on the diagnosis, on the translational research that is open to anybody. It is for free, and there are thousands of people actually from all over the world that are taking this course through our platforms. And finally, we also implemented a specific support because we have realized that indeed, as you mentioned, 20 years of research and not necessarily being translated into a specific outcome to the patient. What we have realized that there is a lot of money that is being invested in research, while the necessary outcomes are not translated sufficiently into specific outputs for the patients. And that's why we have implemented what we call the mentoring programs and the innovation programs for the research projects, where every research project can profit and benefit from the dedicated expertise of experts that are, let's say, from the outside of the research field, but that allow on the faster translation of the research results. For example, from the industry, from the regulatory, the regulatory experts, the methodological and biostatistical expertise, and so on. So the research projects that we are financing can have this kind of expertise at hand, and which is not necessarily available in their environment. And we do not expect also from the researchers that they are going to be the methodologists, the regulators, the policymaker, or the business developer. So this is what we are doing by bringing those more than 130 institutions from 35 countries within the EJPRD, and even more also in the future partnership on rare diseases, on which I can say a little bit more. But that means also that we have the expertise from those different types of stakeholders also in one place. So we also have a help desk which is open to anybody who can come and ask the question, ask for a specific support, and we are, at least if not not able to help directly, we are accelerating the transfer, let's say, to the best expertise from all the experts that we have within the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases. So the patients, researchers, or anybody that is concerned by rare diseases can obtain the support and response as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. I think it's really questions of cooperation, collaboration. I think we as patient organizations will have to contact you more. We'll have to get more in touch with you. At the end, I will tell you something about this. It was very interesting. I thank you very much for this information. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least, Mr. Nuts. I don't know. Men are always pushed back lately. And women are coming first. We have to defend ourselves. Please.
Happy to go last. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Microphone. Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here to talk about how we as companies actually have contributed in the field of research for rare diseases. And I think it's a challenge to turn science into therapies for patients, as we all know. And I think we've been coming a long way with the orphan legislation being introduced, I think, in the year 2000. We do see in many areas that our members, not only our members, also other companies, have brought quite a lot of therapies to European patients, to European markets. And I think that is very important. Just to give some very concrete examples, when we look at, for example, cystic fibrosis, 20 years ago, there was no treatment option for those type of patients with cystic fibrosis, really. When we look at spinal muscular atrophy, now we have 3 treatment options available. When we look at Duchenne muscular dystrophy, there's a lot in the pipeline which could be authorized soon. But also when we look at in the field of cancer, I think we have actually achieved quite a lot, although not everything when it comes to rare diseases. Especially in cancer, I think we have quite some rare disease medicines, orphan drugs in the market in Europe, which are available to European patients. Now, of course, we're not there yet, and it takes a lot of collaboration. And let me also say that whatever we have been achieving in that respect in the field of research, it's not just because of one trade organization or one patient organization or one politician, but it's about a collaborative approach where, of course, physicians play also a critical role, where patient organizations play a critical role. So it's all about collaboration. And I would like to build on that, giving these very concrete examples where we have actually had some achievements. I would also briefly touch on the regulatory level, because it has been mentioned a couple of times. That's at least my feeling. My feeling is I'm living in a territory, or in the European Union, where we are competitive when it comes to getting access to innovative therapies, at least at the regulatory level. We're not there yet when it comes to pricing and reimbursement, to make sure that all patients in all 27 EU countries have equal access to innovative medicines. It's something which we need to debate about for sure. But when it comes to the regulatory level, I do feel that, especially, and it has been mentioned, when it comes to the FDA, we have a competitive system which allows for a speedy access, which allows for prime designations, where special attention is given on certain research projects and products and marketing authorization applications. But also, second example there would also be when it comes to getting the COVID vaccines into European markets at the regulatory level. We didn't have an emergency marketing authorization in Europe at that time, but still we found ways to be competitive and speedy and on the basis of robust data to get the COVID-19 vaccines in the hands of the European patients, or better to say, to the physicians, and then to make sure that we had a great uptake of vaccinations, at least in some countries. So wanted to mention that, so it takes the efforts of many of us in these stakeholder organizations. I'm working in a political organization, so I cannot really give very concrete examples where I have helped individual patients, and you made a couple of very important remarks. But I think what we could do, and what we partly have been doing, is advocating for frameworks which would allow companies to bring those products to European patients. And there's a lot which needs to be done, especially when it comes to newborn screening. I think that has been briefly touched upon. We need to put a stronger emphasis on diagnosis, also in the field of cancer. We just need to put more value on those tests which are made really to identify the root cause of some of those diseases. So more needs to be done, but I want to be brief and stick to time here. I think we can debate more of those things which we need to be done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're really very much back in time. We overdid it. It's my mistake. I probably talked too much at the beginning, but it's very seldom that I can talk in front of a public like it is here. So I apologize. And I think Emma is doing a lot of work, but afterwards we have, they approve it has to go to the governments, local governments. And today in Poland everything goes very smooth. I'm living in Spain, and it can take 2 or 3 years until we have, and we have to fight. We as patient organization have to fight in the Ministry of Health to get things through. But anyway, that's a different question. Let's go now to our Slido world. We have a question which says, where do you see the limitations in rare disease research? I would like to present to this occasion Bianca Kukos. She's from a young forum, Gastein, and she's a news reader. She's a medical doctor specialized in clinical genetics, passionate about personalized medicine, healthcare communication, and public health. Since 2017, Bianca is a medical lead and science communicator at the Conference of Innovation in Medicine, a European civil society organization focused on innovation policy and research. Welcome. Yeah. So please.
Thank you. Yes, we have some questions coming in, and I identified some major topics. One of them is on the lack of awareness around rare diseases and orphan drugs. On the one side, coming from the media, we need more public attention and understanding on the subject. And on the other side, there is a lack of awareness in the sense that the voice of the clinical doctors is not being heard. Another major topic is on resolving the issue of cross-border inequality in rare disease treatment, and why are the European reference networks not being scaled up faster. And then we have some financial aspects. How do we ensure commitment to funding for rare disease drugs? And maybe there are some other questions on how do we remove the politics in the argument for prioritizing rare disease patient therapy.
Well, I think funding is definitely one of very important points. It's definitely not the only one, but it is very much important. What I can see is, from our MPN world, I'm exclusively working for MPN, so I don't really know about all the other rare diseases. But we see a very clear movement that the action is going away from Europe and going away into the States. USA has definitely much more money available. They don't have a problem of having 26 countries. Once FDA approves it, everybody has it available. Here it has to go through all the local governments. But money is very important, and definitely there is. It's going, much better in the States than it's going here. So I think it's a very correct conclusion.
Quick comment on this one?
Sure.
I think it's a different healthcare system, and when it comes to funding, if you look at Medicare, Medicaid, I don't think it is true that every innovative medicine gets access to those patients which are in the need in the US either. It's a system which is much less solidarity based. I think that is something which we need to distinguish. And I mean, we need to. You might have one case of a high-priced gene therapy which might have a faster funding for some patients in the US, but certainly not for all patients. While at the same point in time, I must admit that medicine might be reimbursed in some European countries, maybe even quicker. By the way, I've seen some cell and gene therapies being authorized by the EMA earlier than by the FDA. I mean, we have also those type of examples. So we're not there yet, as I said before, in Europe, but we have a different healthcare system, much more solidarity-based, and I think it's an achievement, actually, I think, in Europe, if I may say that.
I was actually more referring to research and development. That's where the new products are coming from, etc. But your comments are absolutely right, I much more prefer the system we have here than the system which is in the States. Yeah. Okay, let's go next step. As I said, I have overdone it in time. So let's go to the panel discussions, which is involving, all the speakers. And I would take a question here out, which, based on what we have been talking, might be a good starting point. How are European policies influencing rare disease research? Whoever would like to start, I'll leave it
Maybe
up to you.
I can a little bit focus on that on the side of a pediatrician or somebody working with patients and rare diseases. I think that there was a lot of improvement the last years by establishing national action plans on rare diseases that was established 10 years ago in all the countries, and also that possibility to take part as all over the member states on the European reference networks for rare diseases. As you know, there are 24 different disease entities that have been established, and all of the member states should be involved there. I think this is a strong network, and it's also as a clinical patient management system very important, because there we can get in all the rare disease patients also on the level of each country, meaning the diagnosis, the treatment, the possibilities of success, and to define these centers. That should be the strong network that we can go on to collaborate on research. And I think we need more. We don't need only that registration. We need more. We need that research is a basic, and therefore we need networks where really we know how many rare disease patients of entities, where are they located, and we need of all the member states, I think, centralized networks for clinical trials. That means there must be one or two such networks that can focus on their country, and then the pharmacy can only contact these networks in the countries or also these networks of the European Union on the year ends, and they should spread to all the excellent centers they know. And then the specialists, I think we have not a problem that we have specialists. I think the problem is to find the specialists. And therefore, I think the strength of these networks would be that all the specialists are in a network, and you can find them all over Europe. And I think Europe has really a strong network that was not built up by coming of the ends, that was still existing, because there are a lot of European societies on all of the different diseases, and we still have known all of the other one, but it's now visible. You see it now. You can really contact this, and I think that's a strange. Contact the coordinators of these different 24 entities, and all of them are combined in the working groups on the different diseases. These are the voice for all of our member state excellent centers. And we are in contact not only with the healthcare systems, also the patient advocacy groups are really strongly involved in these year-ends working groups. And I think together with pharmacy, with patients, and with the healthcare systems, the physicians, with these three groups, we can find the centers and we can do research. And the pharmacy is offering the clinical trials only if they know the specialist and only if they know how many patients are involved in these centers. And therefore it must be a transparency for all of visibility for Europe. And this is a chance. We need programs for undiagnosed diseases, because we have in all our centers undiagnosed patients. Everybody needs a diagnosis, and only if you have a diagnosis you know about the pathway, you know about the problem, and maybe there's a medicine still established, or maybe then you can go on to establish a treatment. And then we need really clinical trials. The last 2 decades, I think there was such a great development for rare diseases. If I remember, beginning with newborn screenings 50, 60 years ago, we only had diets for most of them. And that means avoid something that you eat. For galactosemia, never take galactose. For phenylketonuria, never take the amino acid phenylalanine. But we had made progress. We had made progress for therapies like biosimilars, like antibodies. Then we were going on for modulations, for chaperone therapies, and now we are going to genetic therapies brought by different virus as tracers to bring in something that's missing, or we have that possibility of ASO therapy or RNA translation modifications, and the next step should be genetic therapy. We are just starting it. It's still research done in primates, and the patients are hoping for that, and also we as physicians, because so many diseases can't be treated by the therapies we still have. They need really a therapy for a genetic change, because there's missing something and they need it. It cannot be passed by. And I think that's a hope. And we shouldn't stop now. We just have to go that way. And I think we can do it, because the families and the patients, also families with children, they are ill. They need hope and they need some treatment. They want to work with us together, all these patients, because it's our future. And I think, therefore, please don't stop, please go on. Also, if the regulations now may be changing, and also maybe the focus is changing more on antibiotic resistance or maybe on prevention therapy, but I think the rare diseases need hope. We know we have still only therapy for 5 to 10% of these rare diseases, and a lot of are not diagnosed in the moment. And I think therefore Europe has the change. We have a great network. Please go on with this network.
Thank you very much.
If I may,
go ahead,
Peter. If I may chip in here, because I think it's really, thank you, Suzanne, for everything that you have said, because actually it's a great introduction to speak about the Rare Disease Partnership, which is called ERDIRA, and we have just submitted to the European Commission for funding, because everything that you have described, meaning an expanded diagnostic program that is based on the network of the European centers, an expanded network which we call the Clinical Research Network, that is dedicated to implement faster the clinical trials, but also to make the rare diseases clinical trial ready, because it's not only about the implementing the clinical trials themselves, but the reality is that if you want to do the development of the therapies or treatments in rare diseases, and when you discuss also with the industry partners, you realize that for the majority of the rare diseases, the information is lacking, the natural history studies lacking, the endpoints are not correct. There is underuse of the real-world evidence or patient-reported outcome measures and so on. So all that has been put all together with the other elements that I've mentioned also that were already built by the European Joint Programme on Rare Diseases, but also the creation of the European Clinical Research Network, the European Diagnostic Programme that is based on the program which is called SOLVE-RD and that some of you may know, but also the development of the technological platform to accelerate the development of advanced therapeutic medicinal products. And this is done together with the industry. All those elements were integrated together in the Rare Diseases Partnership that we have created and that I mentioned is now has been submitted to the European Commission, and we hope is going to start as a continuation also of the HAPRD in September 2024. And I'm really happy that we've managed to achieve things or to overcome those bottlenecks that you have mentioned, meaning how we connect the clinical expertise together with the research expertise, but also with the industry collaboration. And this is something that we have managed to put together within the partnership. So thank you, and I hope that I can reassure that we do not stop, and that the rare disease research ecosystem is getting stronger.
Thank you very much, Daria. It was very, very promising. We're very much short in time, but please, Pernille Weiss, why don't you give your opinion?
I would like to add on what is already said. The Rare Disease Network, yes, indeed, go forward with what you already do. But I would like to recommend also to join and find connection to other ecosystems within the big umbrella of life science industrial ecosystem. Because by that, we can hopefully lift rare diseases up in the awareness of how that can also contribute to other industrial sectors within life science. That's very, very crucial, because that will also incentivize for investments staying in Europe and not going elsewhere outside of Europe to follow innovative ideas abroad. Then also I would very much encourage everyone who is working in this field but not maybe doing enough focus on how to get national politicians to engage, because national member states are the ones who are deciding what gets on the shelves and and what kind of price that the patients have to pay. And if they are not aware about that key role that they actually play, then we will still see that there will be a lot of indifferences and inequality in Europe as a whole. So please do get national politicians to get more awareness and more knowledge about rare diseases, and especially on the healthcare ecosystem of Europe, and how that is important not only for the economy but especially for the patients, of course. Then also I would just like to add, just to let you know what else is happening besides from more healthcare professional networks, that is very key to this topic, that in the Farben package, so in the legislative work happening right now, there is this a suggestion coming from the Commission, and I today file my proposal for the directive, where the more modularized incentivizing via the regulatory data protection is seen as and should be used as key to incentivize innovation, and by that also paving the road forward for more funding, both private and public, especially within rare diseases. And I hope then also to see that the networks, and then I'm coming back to the two previous speakers, that I hope to see in the future that we get more life circle economy assessments to be added to the value probability of a product. Because what does it mean for a patient, for a family, if a certain product is being put to the market for the patients to take? What does that mean for the person's ability to continue education, to stay on as part of the workforce of your country? That is often some of the more total economic arguments that we especially need when it comes to rare diseases, because also that goes back to the national level of decision making, that if they can also on a national member state level see, okay, this year is actually, there's a good business case in saying yes to a product that might be expensive for the individual patient, but it pays off very quickly in quality of life, but also in efficiency of, if one may say so, about a life. But we have to do so with I mean, we have our hands and our heads, and we give something to society by that. So I would very much encourage to that. And that's the very, very last thing I would say in this turn here. Also, please engage in the discussions now going forward on the new concept of unmet medical needs. I could worry a little bit as the European politician that concept, in the way we are going to use it, will be a little bit too elastic and give too much uncertainty for investors, whether or not a product also by the end will be covered by the unmet medical needs definition. It's a very nerdy question, but I know it's a nerdy also audience that is here in Gastein. So I will just flag, please continue to dig in. Peter and I have talked about that from UCOP a couple of times, and it's a very, very important part of the pharma legislation happening right now. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much. Very good news. Thank you. Alexander, we have to close in 15 minutes.
Sorry, Alexander.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
And they have still programs to go. Please.
First of all, I think we have... I think we do have a very good, actually a good infrastructure when it comes to research from the hospital and what we call KOL, physician perspective. I think we have a lot of research here, which is very important, which is very important also for treating patients ultimately in Europe. I do think, and I hope, that we will attract more clinical trials through the new portal, the clinical trial regulation, which is up and running now, so that should be easier to facilitate multi-centric clinical trials. So I'm optimistic in that respect. I'm sometimes wondering, indeed, why we do see basic research in European institutions and hospitals done here in Europe, but then moving to the US to make it a product. That happens, and I've seen that in our portfolio of member companies a couple of times, that there's basic research in northern Italy in a university, but then the product pops up somewhere in the US. And I think that's something we need to do about that, because that seems to be about a certain type of risk awareness and financial not risk awareness, a risk-taking attitude, which is, it looks like is more existing in the US, and it's about financials and so on. I think we need to do something about that. But I want to come back to the infrastructure. I mean, you've mentioned the European Reference Networks, which has been established by the European Commission, if I remember correctly, in 2004 and 2014 or 12. 12.
16.
16 it has been really... 12 it has been established, 16 I think it has been filled with life. So that's very good. I think that's very important that we have that. Clusters of expertise in rare diseases, and I think we can build on that. I wanted to touch on a couple of... So I think we have the good infrastructure. You, Peter, elaborated in the beginning a bit on all those administrative obstacles which we're having. And I think some of that has to do with data sharing from A to B, which is not easy. Probably it is, because it's taking longer for the physicians to do that and so on. And that is for good reason. We want to protect the data of the patients, no doubt about it. But on the other hand, we've been using the GDPR, which was enacted to safeguard our children and all of us from Facebook and all those institutions using data for whatever purposes. We're taking that same approach for healthcare, and that is, I feel like we're correcting that a little bit with the European Health Data Space now, and I think that's very positive that we are allowing for data from patients which are not included in a clinical trial, that we can draw conclusions from that data. So I think, and with the help of the European Parliament, also in that respect, there is much more. There are a lot of amendments on real-world evidence, how that can be better used for decision making.
Just interfere 1 second here.
Yeah.
Patients in general, they are absolutely agreeing that their data are being used.
Right.
I mean, I always ask, and nobody says no.
Right, and here we are. I mean, we need to build on that. If a patient says no, I don't want that data to be used for this and that purposes, nobody will ever use it. It will be respected. So I think the European Health Data Space, and again, thanks to the good work actually in the European Commission, but also in the European Parliament with the amendments, I think is a way forward to stimulate further innovation and research in Europe, hopefully in the years to come. And finally, I wanted to pick up on something Pernille Weiss said as well. It needs a business case at the end of the day. I think we have to be aware of that. And some countries seem to be doing better when it comes to keeping that basic research in Europe, such as Denmark, where there's a lot of innovation, also smaller pharmaceutical companies developing and so on. And I think let's share some best practice examples in that respect. Why are some countries doing better?
Take Poland, for example.
I don't know so much about Poland, but I'm just taking Denmark and a couple of other Nordic countries where there are biotechs flourishing and where there are more companies staying actually in Europe and bringing products. So let's take that best practice example and look into that, even though it might not be in our remit in Brussels to do something about it because we don't have the full competency about tax and so on and so forth. So I think that's one point. And ultimately, my last point is definitely, yes, it takes a business case. It also takes a business case in terms of predictability for industry. If we have so many ifs around whether I get 8 years of regulatory data protection or maybe 9 or maybe 10, if there are so many ifs around that, I think that will fear off investors. Investors need at a certain point in time the predictability, what they will get, what the product could achieve when it is successful in the clinical trials, in the regulatory process, and also in the pricing and reimbursement processes. So I completely agree with Pernille Weiss that if we're putting too many uncertainties around it, it can be harmful for innovation. And the ultimately last point is unmet medical need. An unmet medical need in SMA type 1 is maybe not an unmet medical need in SMA type 4. These are very different types of diseases, all they belong to the same family, if I may say so as a lawyer, but I hope I'm correct. So an unmet medical need is very hard to judge at a certain point in time because we see products developing, we only see over the lifespan of a medicine how good a product is performing. So we need to allow for that. But at the same point in time, we need to give the investors and the company the predictability whether there is an unmet medical need. And ultimately, not having an unmet medical need is a big sticker for the pricing and reimbursement negotiations. I don't think there will be too many payers in Europe willing to give an adequate or high, or whatever you want to call it, price, which is, again, important for making the decision to come to Europe, if there's no unmet medical need. So that's a big footprint and a big sticker tag, which will spill over into pricing and reimbursement decisions. So let's be very careful of how we use the term. I couldn't agree more. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, we have 8 minutes left, which is not very much, but again, this is my mistake. So why don't we go to the new newsreader desk online and audience questions?
Yes, so we have some more questions coming in. One of them would be if you could give us an example of a country that is performing best when it comes to drugs for rare diseases. Then another question is, why are genetic therapies not being adopted quicker? And also someone is raising the question on improving screening programs. These would be like the last questions that have arrived.
Maybe I can only answer for the newborn screening. I think the newborn screening is a great challenge, and I think that if the criteria of Jungsen and Wilson are fulfilled, then all the countries should go on newborn screening, because newborn screening can detect the children with a severe inherited disease very, very early, before the symptoms are coming up. And if the criteria are fulfilled and we have a therapy, I think it must be the politics and the governments who should implement as early as possible these diseases also in newborn screening. We have done that in Austria. I think we have a great newborn screening, one of the greatest in Europe, by 31 diseases we are detecting. And SMA was included in June 2021. And we have detected from that time on 20 children, newborns with SMA1, and all of them have got the gene therapy. And I think that is where we should focus. We are not all the best in Austria, but this is one example where we are good. And I think that's a problem. It was the first question. A country doing quite well. I think that there are so many countries doing well in single things, in single diseases, and very excellent. But I don't think that we have one country doing the best in all of it. And that's a problem. We have to do the best in all of it, in all countries. Therefore, it's the strength of European Union. I think our 27 members and all the other one cooperated, like Switzerland, should progress together in this way. Thank you.
That's our future right here. But I think generic products, I think the main problem is that the pharmaceutical treatments which we have now, they are all patent protected because they're new products. So it will need some time until the generics get in. Yeah, some of them we have generics.
I would say, Penella, you want to go first?
Well, we have to be very, very careful with adopting methodologies or myth about what is related to patient access and IP rights and generics. And that is where we could actually learn from some countries who are very good in making contracts on reimbursement and pricing for and making contracts on generics. And there I have to say, although I am a Dane, that we can learn a lot from Denmark, that it is not because of IP rights that in some countries there can be a shortage for a while, and sometimes a long while, between the end of an intellectual property right and the availability of generics. It's a matter of how to do clever contracting, and there, my country, Denmark, and the agency, not the agency, but we have in Denmark something called AMCROS. They are very clever in how to do it within the legal framework, of course, and there a lot of other member states could learn. So we shouldn't kill IP rights because we think that that will give us more and cheaper generics faster. That is really a false myth. Sorry to say, but it is, and I have to say it because we're thinking into it right now.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I would also think that when it comes to generic uptake in Europe, I can't speak for all the 27 countries, but I mean, first of all, if the patent or the regulatory data protection and the orphan exclusivity is expired, as a company, there's nothing I can do to go beyond that. It's in the remit of the payer to do the right, to use the right vehicles. If I'm extending my patent, I have immediately a competition law fraud, and because the competition authorities would look into that. There's no possibility really for evergreening. At least it's very dangerous to do. Let's put it this way, from the competition perspective. The other thing is indeed, as was just mentioned, if you look at Germany, for example, once a patent expires, regulatory data protection, orphan exclusivity, no more protection on the medicine, products immediately end up in tenders if the indication is wide enough, if we have generic competition. And if there is generic competition flourishing, depends of course on the size of a patient population. If I have an ultra rare disease, there might be no generic company willing to go into that market because it's just not, the volume is just not there for the company. But I think in normal circumstances, you see generic competition flourishing by way of tendering, where the healthcare systems are clever enough to say, if I'm not tendering this, I will not bring down the price of that one medicine. I need to tender it. And then there's substitution policies for the same API in the pharmacies. So you need to switch from one API to the other as a pharmacist, otherwise you're penalized. On top of that, you have internal reference pricing for those type of medicines, so that the payers are actually saying, I'm only paying for that type of medicine or class of medicine the amount XYZ. So you can charge higher, but there would be co-payment for the patient, and nobody would do that. So I think there are tools in place.
Thank you very much. Do we still have maybe some questions from the audience? Any more questions from your side? Or can we...
I think we can wrap up.
Can we make a wrap up? Good, so I will try to keep my time this time. I think we have seen very clearly that, a lot of efforts are being done from all the different sides. I mean, I'm impressed to listen, what you all explained, what you're doing. And I think there's a big lack of information, of communication, between the patient organizations and what you're doing, from a government side. So I think that will have to be approved. And I think it can. Let me just explain you one very, very short thing. In the COVID times, when we had to stay at home, I was analyzing the MPN world, and I was thinking, what do we have from a doctor side, from hospitals, from legislation, etc. And I thought that what we are missing is a platform where I always say my 3 Ps, that we can talk to each other, which is patient, pharmaceuticals, and the physicians. So I created a foundation, and 2 weeks ago, I managed first time in a symposium to have these 3 Ps together. We had 30 patients from 6 different European countries. We had 6 representatives from a pharma industry, and we had 6 or 7 physicians. And I was very happy, that this worked. We were on one room, we had one dinner together, we had lunches together, and people was exchanging their opinions, and that was absolutely beautiful. I think I have to include another P, include the politicians or the political side, and I will do it. I never wanted to be involved in politics. I have enough to do with my patients, but I can see that if we are not improving in that aspect, we cannot just only ask, but the patient has to be in the center. We have to do something in order that the patient is in the center. And from my side, I would try to do that, to have in our meetings, in our efforts and everything, in our thinking, but we have more involved, people like you're sitting here, and others to try to improve and try to make things better. I think, you're all doing a very, very big effort And I think, we can help you in the sense that this effort at the end is faster getting to results. But we as patients, we can understand what you're doing, but we can advise you what we would like to see. Maybe you can adopt or you cannot. So I think, but that information, that flow of information at this moment is not existing. And I think this is something on which we have to work. And this is at least the lesson which I got, from this event now here. And it was worthwhile to make my long trip from Barcelona to come here. Besides, it reminds me to my home country, Switzerland, when I'm here, see all the cows and everything is green, etc. So thank you very much. It was great. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for joining us even when you're far away. And let's try to keep touch and to do something positive for everybody. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.